to Swedenborgian Life. Today we're going to be talking about marriage love. So glad to have you here with us on this conversational journey. My name is Curtis Childs, and I'll be your host. With me as always, Dr. Jonathan Rose.
Hey, Curtis.
Thanks so much for coming, and thanks to all of you. If you've been enjoying this series where we slowly go through and describe the nature of everything, according to Swedenborg, right?
That's right.
Which is not too bad a scope. Please like and subscribe. That helps us keep going. It lets us know, oh, someone just did it right there. Great job. Lets us know we're doing a good job. Lets YouTube know and all that. And today, like I said, we're continuing our walk through everything. Everything that matters. And so, would you really, the cosmos and the nature of it, and marriage, is that up there in the side? But Swedenborg decided that it was worth it to put out a whole treatise on the subject. And we're going to dive into how does that fit in his cosmology, what's he saying, the controversy surrounding all the above. It's going to be a great time. So glad to have you with us, but we can't just walk into that cold.
No, you wouldn't want to do that.
We got to do some icebreaker here. So let's see if we can get ourselves in the mode of thinking about this kind of stuff with a good question. Okay, so, and if you're watching this, we want to hear your answers too. Write them in the comments because obviously we already know. Actually, who knows if I know what you think about this question? Well,
yeah,
I'd be interested
I don't
to
know
see.
if I know what I think about it.
So, what do you think? Because if we're talking about the true aspects of life, then it should be that everyone has their own perspective into that, and it's valuable to pick that stuff up. So, getting into our subject here, the icebreaker question is this. What are important qualities for a loving relationship? And, elephant in the room is that we're thinking of it in the context of Swedenborg stuff. So I don't know if does that affect, your answer on something like that or not? So I'd love to hear, give me some advice.
Yeah, well, I really think his Swedenborg's thoughts on this have gotten under my skin in a sense because the way he presents it, what makes for a good loving relationship is the same stuff that makes you a good person. People trying to become angels or be in heaven or whatever, same kind of thing of like getting the love of self and self-centeredness. Just subordinate it, you'd never get rid of it, but just trying to dial that back a little bit, make a little room in your heart for someone else. And so some self-monitoring, you know what I mean? And giving the other person the benefit of the doubt, praying for the other person, especially when they're annoying, which and they hardly ever are.
Never.
But,
Yeah. So it's just so funny that you can, and I think that there's definitely use in all of the pop literature on this kind of thing. It's important to let the other person have their interests and support them and split things, or be willing to go beyond 50-50. We once did a show on this topic on this channel where we interviewed this couple who they both said okay, I want to give 100% regardless of whether I feel like I'm getting back 100%, that's the secret. All that stuff is useful, but if really in this relationship, I really just am in love with myself, like you're saying, and I'm not following those guidelines, it's only going to ever get me to, okay, we've just gotten the neutral ground. Unless I'm playing the exact same game, like you're saying, of, okay, well, how do I, realize, okay, God is the one that's actually doing good things. I have to tamp down my sense of being so awesome. That's the only way that you really get into love, because otherwise you're just looking for your partner to give you the stuff you want or make your life easier or upgrade your social status,
and fulfill some kind of dream or fantasy or something that you have about
and then
yourself in your life.
Arm candy, but on the other hand, realizing the influence of hell on myself and then giving the benefit of doubt for them.
Yeah, and hell cares about this stuff. I mean, I definitely feel hell kind of the battle is active around these kind of issues, and I think ultimately and you see this sometimes in stories on the news or something, of where one person wants to so dominate the other that they really are like a slave, literally chained in the basement or something like that. That's where you don't want to particularly go, and I think we all have, I certainly have that tendency in myself of just hey, let's keep that out of the the committee that makes the decisions about what we're going to do.
Because everyone's got this miniature, like at work, in friends, in marriage, everywhere, I want what I want, and I want to have it, and this, I don't want to do work, and all this stuff.
I want other people to serve me, and
But to notice, like, okay, notice when that's me. Like, when am I being unreasonable, and childish about this kind of stuff? But also, like, if my partner does that, to say, well, that not necessarily pin that on them. Because I think of myself, it's like the fundamental attribution error. Okay, I wasn't myself here, and if Swedenborg is right, then hell got the best of me. That doesn't, because they did something that I perceive as not that great, doesn't mean that that's them at their core. It's like, okay, hell got, and that's the same principle that you give to people who somebody races by you on the road and you're mad. Okay,
that's true.
Or maybe they're going to the hospital, or maybe they will repent later. So you've got to use those exact same principles, or else you can get somewhere, but you're never going to really escape all the trappings that ruin what can be this really cool, hey, we're going to live together and try to do life well and be good friends to people in society and all the rest,
When I forget that a relationship is between two multi-leveled beings,
right,
then stuff gets baffling. Like, wait, I thought, you liked me a minute ago or something like that. Well, no, they're multi-layered. I'm multi-layered.
Yeah.
Stuff can go in the wrong ear, all that.
That's great.
And,
so here we are, obviously chatting about this stuff from a Swedenborgian perspective, but why and how does this tie into Swedenborg's cosmology? Why did he feel like he needed to wade into this relationship, self-help area?
And what's he doing?
Okay, so we'll find out exactly what he's doing as we move into our series or our section on the books. Yeah, book club. I always feel like I have to apologize for the book club section because it's not the coolest thing in the world of all the clubs that you can be.
No, but to people who like that sort of thing, that's very cool.
I've long ago been done with the trying to be cool thing. I love the idea of a book club. We're going to study some ideas, think through this, and especially books that are talking about how to break free of everything that gets you down.
Amazing.
It's awesome. So here we are in the book club. Don't click away. What we're doing is moving through everything that Swedenborg talked about in the way that he gave us the information. Because he saw the big picture and he thought, I'm going to organize it in this way. So we'll give it, but it's not really about the book. It's about the ideas in it. This is a way to organize it and learn more about, I don't need to convince you all of it. You're already this far in the video. You're going to stay. So let's talk about this. And what exactly are we talking about today?
So we're talking about marriage love. This is a work that Swedenborg did, and we'll look at the timeline a little bit about where that fits in. If you can read that tiny writing on there, that actually says conjugal love. We'll get into the different titles in a second, too.
There's so much suspense.
The long title in English is The Delights of Wisdom Concerning Marriage Love, followed by, because he's got another section at the back of the book, The Pleasures of Insanity Concerning Promiscuous Desire. And we're going to dig into that a little more.
And when we were researching this show, Chelsea made the great point that that's sort of what he does with heaven and hell. Heaven and its wonders, and then hell.
And then hell.
Same kind of.
And it's a similar kind of ratio of like 90% good, and then you get 10% at the back of the book about the problems.
Yeah. But solve this for me. Why are you calling it marriage love, and here it's called, I can't even read that. What is that?
I would say of all Swedenborg's published theological works, this one has had the most titles.
Ding ding.
The Latin word that he uses is conjugialis, and it's a somewhat unusual Latin word. And so some people have thought, he wants us to use something unique because he's talking about love in a different way.
Yeah.
So we'll just take that right into English and call it conjugal.
Yes.
But other people have said married love, love in marriage, marriage love.
Yeah.
And the conjugal just means of or pertaining to marriage.
It does. Okay.
It's close to the English word conjugal, like a conjugal visit or something.
But
conjugal means, in the Latin, of or pertaining to a spouse, and conjugal means of or pertaining to the marriage relationship, like the two people. So.
Because we've, on this very channel, had times when we were talking about conjugal love, and we have people in the comments saying it's pronounced conjugal. They think that we're just mispronouncing, we're putting the wrong emphasis.
Right.
But it's actually this funny Latin word that he uses. Okay, so we've gone on and on about the framing. What's in the book? What's it talking about? Let's play a little game we call What's the Headline? So, if you had to summarize, if somebody
that
said...
was an impressive sound effect.
Well, I just thought we didn't have one loaded up.
Yeah.
We can edit that out later. So, what's the headline? What's this book about?
I would say the spiritual underpinnings of earthly relationships, is kind of...
Yeah.
Because what's cool about the book, you can, as you say, there's lots of self-help books that'll tell you about relationships. They're full of wonderful information.
Right.
But what he's talking about is, hey, where's heaven in this? And what are relationships like on the other side?
Yeah.
And what's God doing? And why is this important? So the spiritual underpinnings.
And a headline you could have is, marriage relationships can continue after death.
Ah, that's a good one.
Because that wasn't a given, still is not, but in Swedenborg's day particularly, now we sort of have this idea of soulmates and you meet your loved ones on the other side. But back then there was a big block of people that thought because Jesus said they're neither married nor given in marriage, that was a literal proclamation rather than correspondence.
Yeah, so the actual marriage ceremony, the wedding ceremony would say, till death do us part. In other words, till death separates us, because you're not going to be together. There's not even gender in the other world, or what was the common view with which Swedenborg disagrees. So
that's a headline. Another headline is how the cosmic nature of God and everything manifests between two people, right? Because it is more than just relationship help. It's this whole metaphysics kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of those are really like succinct headlines.
Yeah, they're good.
So what's in it? If we were to dive into this book, well, I mean, you just look at the length of the actual title of this book. What's in it? Let's take a look at the table of contents where you'll see these worlds intersect. There's that big title. Here's a couple of chapter titles.
Conjugal word there.
Yes. So, and just looking at a couple of these, you can see the scope of it. On the origin of conjugal love from the marriage of good and truth. So there we start, philosophical, 10,000-foot view. The good and truth is married in everything, and somehow that can lead to marriage.
And he says that's sort of like the substance and form of the universe or something. So that's where this is just a manifestation of a much larger thing.
And then we move down to the marriage of the Lord and the church and its correspondence. That we're not even talking about two people right now. We're talking about God connecting to the church, which is this thing inside people, that you're going sort of down. But then...
And Paul gets into that in the epistles of the relationship of the Lord and the bride, the book of Revelation, other stuff like that.
Then you have the chaste and the unchaste. So this is where we start to get into like what's acceptable behavior.
Right. And he does a very interesting repurposing of that word, because to him, generally when people talk about chastity, they're talking about no sex.
Yes.
He's talking about having a clean sexual relationship or attitude or something like that. Like there's lots of sex, but it's how you're approaching it or something like that.
That's right. That's right. Headline, there's lots of sex.
Yes.
Then we got into
He was known for that.
Well, actually, I mean, nowadays, you could say, Swedenborg has got these old school views, but at the time it was very like, what you're allowing for
cutting edge. Yeah, seriously.
On the conjunction of souls and minds by marriage, changes of state of life by marriage with men and women.
So that actually changes you, like you become a somewhat different person when you enter into this state.
And very like down to very detailed. We're not talking about angels or how divine love and wisdom work. This is the kind of stuff you can I'm going to make very direct assertions, which led to, I think, some of the controversy that I think we'll address in our next section that we're going to start right now, which is called Why and When. So why, Swedenborg was in his wheelhouse talking about divine providence, about heaven and hell. He's explaining the Bible, which he feels very adept at. Why take this deviation? And I shouldn't say deviation, because he brings up marriage in heaven and hell and a lot of other books, but why go and just really dig into it like he is, and when? So hit me with the timeline.
Particularly in Secrets of Heaven, you have some material about it.
Yeah.
And then in Heaven and Hell, he's got a chapter right in the middle of the book, which is interesting to me. But in a lot of his other books, he doesn't get into it. It seems like, and so I'm not sure if you were sort of following him in real time back in the 18th century that you think, I bet his next book is going to be about marriage.
Sort of like
you wouldn't see that coming.
Yeah, like Swedenborg did a country album, really?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so let's take a look at our timeline.
Right. Yeah, here you go. So we're all the way up in 1768. Like he dies in 1772 there, so we're getting close to the end. So it's amazing that he was 80 years old when he wrote and published this book. It's just kind of striking, interesting. So some life experience and everything, but he himself had not been married, which is another weird thing.
Yeah.
Here's an 80-year-old bachelor writing a book on, on marriage. It's just a little outside the wheelhouse, I think.
Important because some people, when you start to see the importance that Swedenborg places on marriage, or not the importance, but the place he gives it in the pantheon of existential stuff, it's so, he talks it up so much that some people's reaction to the book like this is, well, I'm not married, or I don't have a good marriage, so am I outside some kind of spiritual club? But Swedenborg, who's obviously plugged in enough that we're making this show in his honor a million years later, or at least in honor of the concepts, he wasn't doing it. He wasn't married, So you don't have to be. You don't install your life out.
Yeah, and he really does see it like, and as I say, his thoughts sort of get under my, they get into my brain after a while. That the whole, there's something about hell and the whole like sexual madness where the human race kind of wants to go in its worst states or something, and there's something heavenly about when it's in order and done done okay or something like that. I don't know. It's just there's something to that. Well,
all right, so let's talk a little bit about the controversy that's been around. I feel like with this book we broadcast out of the United States, I feel like everything in there is controversial right now.
Yes. Yeah, and even has become more controversial in the last 10 or 20 years, even than it was before, and it already was. So you go back to the 18th century, it's hard for us to put ourselves back there.
Yes.
Because there was such a presumption of mom and dad and, what I mean, the nuclear family. And,
right. Well, and even like marriage often was just obviously a social contract for status, or even him saying that love relationships continue at that time was controversial. Something impressive is the book has been controversial forever.
It has.
It's gone back
and it's been read in entirely different ways. Like there was a feminist group in 19th century Sweden that said, this book is really important because it says that male and female are equal. Yeah. And there's been other people who said, no, the whole feminist thing is wrong. Look at this book. Yes. It says this, that, and the other thing.
I've had there are some Swedenborgians, and I mean like people who are in Swedenborgian churches who think that this book is kind of the core of everything. This is really the holy of holies, and and you protecting that is the most important thing.
This is the center of it.
And then
that's right. And everything's around the outside.
That's right. And I've had other Swedenborgian ministers in other churches say this is one of only two books that we don't present as like the theology of our church.
There's a lot of people who have trouble with it. A lot of female Swedenborgians have trouble with the book. And,
So let's like, okay, enough. So there's the controversy. We'll show you some of what's in it.
Well, and I just want to add that even today, like even the existence of two genders is
debated,
a subject of debate.
Right.
What is the definition of marriage?
Yeah.
What's the nature of this whole thing? It's so different now that almost everything he says is bound to offend somebody.
Yeah. So we say all that to say we hope that you're offended in some way by the time this is over. Let's go. We're not experts on all this stuff. We're experts in telling you what Swedenborg says.
That's
so
right.
Let's do that. And this will be the first time we really crack into the book. Let's do our little game that we call First and Last. How do you open a work like this, and how do you close it? This is how
it's
Swedenborg
not where you would think. It's a very interesting beginning. He writes, the first chapter heading is The Joys of Heaven and a Wedding There. So we start in the spiritual world, not here.
Right.
And the first opening paragraph is, I anticipate that many who read the following descriptions and the accounts at the ends of the succeeding chapters will believe they're figments of my imagination. He's got sort of a disclaimer about the spiritual experiences he writes about in here.
Yes.
And that I know you're going to think I made this stuff up.
Yes.
So he feels compelled to say, I swear in truth, however, that they're not inventions, but actual occurrences to which I was witness, nor were they witnessed in any condition of unconsciousness, but in a state of full wakefulness. This wasn't some strange, hallucinatory dream or something. For it's pleased the Lord to manifest himself to me and send me to teach the doctrines that will be the teachings of the new church, the church meant by the New Jerusalem in the book of Revelation. To this end, he's opened the inner faculties of my mind and spirit. As a result, it's been made possible for me to be in the spiritual world with angels, at the same time in the natural world with people, and this now for 25 years. So he leads with spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And then the story that he tells you, and it takes like 35 pages or something to tell this opening story. He never does that in any other book that I can think of. And the story he tells you is all about people who have the wrong idea about heaven. And doesn't say anything about marriage for a long time. Yeah. Eventually you get the wedding at the end. Yeah. But a lot of it is about people who are mistaken about what they think heaven is. It's such an interesting way to start, and it's a little counterintuitive.
They think heaven is perpetual worship, or perpetual feasting, or perpetual conversation, and they are each
or just getting in the door.
Just getting in the door. And they're each, the angels say, you want to try that? Try it for a few days and tell me how you feel about it. It's a very interesting way to start. And then to end, he ends the book with more spiritual experiences. Right. But I wanted to get to the ending sort of before
of the main text.
The last number before that. Because another reaction people could potentially have to this is like, oh great, just what we need, religion wading into relationships and sex.
Personal, getting into the bedroom and
because there's been so much, there's this hand in hand, people are like, well, religion has been so judgmental. That people will use religion to be here and tell you how you should live your life.
Yeah, that's right.
So
the police are sort of watching what you quote unquote.
So this is a fascinating way that he ends this book about how you're supposed to do that kind of stuff. This being the case, and he begins this last two paragraphs with talking about how marriage love can be in one person in a couple and not necessarily in the other. It's more subtle than you might think. It's not how good's your chemistry, it's something else. This being the case,
it's something internal. It's a really an inside job.
That's what I'm saying. Right. This being the case, it is possible for conjugal love to exist in one partner and not at the same time in the other. It is possible as well for that love to lie so deeply hidden that the person himself has no awareness of it.
That's crazy. Wow.
And it may also be, and I guess this is a good time to mention, some of these translations we're using have male pronouns.
True.
The NCE will not have that when it comes out.
That's right.
It's Latin.
At least not where, if Swedenborg's gender inclusive in his Latin, which he often is, then we'll be gender inclusive. It's not that you won't have any male pronouns, but you'll know that it's a male in the underlying Latin.
Right. Just since we're offending everybody.
That's right.
The reason is that has no awareness of it, and it may be also implanted during the course of one's life. So marriage love during the course, not necessarily because you got married.
Like you may start out badly in the first chapter, but you may get there by the end of the book.
The reason is that conjugal love and its progress accompanies religion. And because religion is the marriage of the Lord and the church, religion is what initiates and infuses that love. Consequently, conjugal love is imputed to a person after death in accordance with his spiritual, rational life. Moreover, for one to whom that love is imputed, a marriage is, after his passing, provided in heaven, whatever the character of any marriage he may have had in the world. Okay.
And all these could be he or she, because I'm sure he's not being gendered in here.
From this now proceeds the following conclusion, the final conclusion of this book. That one ought not to take the appearances in marriages or the appearances in acts of licentiousness and infer from them that someone does or does not have conjugal love.
Oh, so you would think that, I can judge because so-and-so's acting out, whereas that person is an upstanding citizen, or something.
That you don't know. He's saying even acts of licentiousness, so stuff that would be outside of what he would describe as the right kind of behavior, even if you see someone's like, hey, they're doing that, they shouldn't be doing that, you don't know.
You don't
know.
And
he ends with this quote from Matthew 7:1, therefore judge not that you be not condemned. It's crazy, right?
Wow.
All right.
Really interesting.
Let's get into it. Let's see what can we pull out of this to enhance our life. What does he say about all this? We're going now for 3 bites. So obviously there's so much in each of these books that we can't touch on all, but we tried to pick some good samples here of the kind of things that he discusses. And we want to start, which is, saying, as we said before, back in the day when he was writing, marriage could just be a property, status, convenience thing. It was a way to tie royal families together, especially in the circles Swedenborg was running in. Yeah. So Swedenborg's saying that there's more. We take it for granted. You can marry for love now. That wasn't the case. Right. This is from Marriage Love 38. And an earthly person desires and longs merely for superficial connections and the physical pleasures that go with them. But the spiritual person desires and longs for a deeper connection and the spiritual well-being that goes with it.
Such an interesting idea that you could get that out of a relationship, like a relationship could play a role in.
Right, and realizes that this can happen only with one wife with whom he can be perpetually more and more joined into one person.
It might be worth saying at this point, too, that Swedenborg's writing in Latin, and women they didn't go to college, they were not taught Latin. He could presume a male readership for this book originally because they were the only people, there was a few exceptions, but like 99% of his audience would be male.
So what's he getting at? So there's obviously, he's saying one wife is better than polygamy, but also probably one wife is better than a mistress. The joining with one person is what creates this spiritual connection.
A committed relationship.
Yeah, that's right. Fidelity. The more closely they are joined, the more he notices his well-being is increasing in the same degree. And this continues to eternity.
Wow, so the relationship is possible for the relationship to get better forever, and it's not just till death do us part.
Bam. The earthly person, no offense, however, does not think this way. And that is why we now specify that it is marriage love that continues for people who go to heaven, namely those who have become spiritually minded on earth. This gets a little bit back to our icebreaker of how do you have a good relationship? You've got to have this spiritual attitude towards life to really be going after the right things.
Yes, to be in sort of a heavenly relationship to the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so very interesting. Similarly, here's another quote that has to do with the fact that what's the opposite?
Yeah.
He gets into these definitions and stuff.
Right.
And he uses this term promiscuous desire, which is sort of a blanket term for the worst thing he's talking about. But he has to define it pretty carefully.
Right.
And he says a lot of things that it's not. It's really about an inner attitude. So this is Marriage Love 423 and 424. I need first to make clear what promiscuous desire in this chapter means. So he's going to define his terms.
Okay.
It does not mean the desire of fornication that precedes marriage or that happens after one's partner has died. He defines fornication, a sort of biblical, old-fashioned word, as
sex before marriage.
Sex between people where there's no marriage involved. It's like it's two single people getting together. Whether it's after, you've been widowed or whatever.
Right.
It doesn't mean, he's not talking about that. Okay. He's talking about this red hot area, and that's not it.
Sure.
Okay, what else isn't it? It does not mean the milder forms of adultery. Wow. You wouldn't even throw milder forms. So you can see he's got degrees of, there's milder kinds of adultery, and then there's worse kinds that he talks about. And when he's talking about the worst kinds, sometimes he's getting into like incest and rape and things like that.
So he's saying this stuff may be not necessarily great, but it's not like marriage love killer like some of this other stuff.
Yes, right. He's really trying to define what is that actual opposite of marriage love. Or even the more serious forms that are followed by a return to one's senses, or in other, traditional translations, a repentance. That's what that's what that means. Is whoa, that was stupid. So you're drunk at a party and you do something stupid.
Doesn't mean.
It's like that's not the opposite. That's not destructive necessarily. As destructive. Like there are degrees.
Sure.
He's very nuanced about the whole thing. Actually, since the latter do not end up being opposed to marriage love. Like if you wait a minute, I've been an idiot.
Sure.
Then you're not like, oh, I'm against marriage in all its forms.
It's a problem, but it's not going to.
And the former are not opposed. Yeah. Rather, the kind of promiscuous desire that is in opposition to marriage love, in this case, means a desire to commit adultery when we do not regard it as a sin, as evil, or as shamefully irrational, but regard it as acceptable and excusable. So he sees an interesting difference between like making a mistake and going in there boldly and just like, no, this is right.
I don't care
no problem
who I hurt by this. I don't care the impact.
It's actually kind of fun if it's, sort of blows the world up or something.
That's the opposite.
This kind of promiscuous desire not only equates itself with marriage love, so it says, oh no, this is the right way to do it. It even diminishes that love, destroys it, and ultimately renders it nauseating. Like you can be in such a state that marriage comes up, and Swedenborg talks about evil spirits who get sick at the mere mention of it. Like they hate the whole, don't talk to me about it.
No fidelity.
By promiscuous desire, I mean a desire to commit adultery that is destructive of marriage love. Like there's some forces that actually have it in. I love that scene in The Incredibles where the kid says, the bad guys want to hurt mom and dad's marriage or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Incredibles 1, right?
Yeah, okay. Incredibles 1.
Yeah.
That's right.
I haven't seen 2. Okay, and
it's good.
So we're starting to get some of the sense of the scope and how it ties in, but what's it all for? Like, why is he willing to take on this challenge of going into the ins and outs, which are often
wading into this
minefield? Well, it's because he felt like the end result can be so awesome that it's worth trying to sort the stuff out. So this is from 180. The states of mind characteristic of marriage love, when it's gotten right and it keeps going into heaven, all this stuff, are innocence, peace, serenity, a most profound friendship, absolute trust, and the mutual desire in soul and heart to do everything good for the other person.
Wow, that's a pretty nice list there. Yeah, that's not bad.
All these lead to bliss, happiness, gladness, and pleasure.
Yeah, that's right. Just bliss and pleasure.
And the eternal enjoyment of these leads to heavenly happiness.
Heavenly happiness. I don't think many people think, there's heavenly happiness in there.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason all these states of mind occur in, and therefore as a result of marriage love, is that their source is the marriage of goodness and truth. And this marriage comes from the Lord.
Sort of marriage in air quotes, yeah.
Exactly. The metaphysical joining of goodness and truth that happens inside a person, that happens, Lord, to the church. Somehow this can directly stream into this relationship where there's plenty of marriages you can look around and say, that's not good. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But a one where there's all those qualities we're talking about before, mutual desire, the mind and heart, to do the other one every good, that can be a conduit for whatever this thing is he's talking about. It is the nature of love to want to share its joy with another whom it loves deeply.
That's true, isn't
Indeed,
it?
To bring joy to that individual and in so doing actually secure its own joy.
That's nice.
How much more infinitely is this true then of the divine love the Lord has for us, whom he has created as vessels capable of receiving the love and wisdom that radiate from him. I know elsewhere in his writings, Swedenborg says, marriage love is cool because it's love getting to do its full expression. Like with everybody that you meet, you want to be able to, how can I make your life better? When you get into the heavenly mindset, how can I make your life better? How can I do something for you? But you have to stop short of, let's share our whole lives together and do good to each other forever, because people, hey, take it easy. Like you can't do that.
Once they're through the gate and on the plane, it's over.
Yeah, that's right. So here he's saying that, but in a marriage, in a committed relationship, you get to do that. You get to say, I'm going to give everything I have to you, and that this is in its own way, it's a little mirror of what God is trying to do with each one of us.
And it's a long game. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of instances of the kind of stuff that inspired Swedenborg, and he felt like it was important. So that said, you've got some cool, inspiring stuff in there. We also talked about all the controversy and things. Why keep publishing this? I know you guys are working on, so that's our next game. Why keep? How can it help? I was like, what's the name of our next game? How can it help? So I know you guys are working on another translation. What do you see? Where does this book fit into Swedenborg's overall corpus? Is that a corpus?
Yes, that's a good word.
Corpus theologica. And what can it do for people, even despite the fact that it may rub some people the right way and other people, whoa, what's this? So.
I mean, I guess I would say that because it ties out to his whole view of the universe and what God is doing and spirituality and rebirth and all that kind of stuff, it seems to be a particular concrete instance of that. And he talks about the fact that in ancient times on this planet, there were these amazing, very sweet, beautiful marriages that went on before everybody sort of went crazy. And that we can get back there. And so I think part of what he was doing with the book was like, hey, here's something of a roadmap, just to say, like, there's something really cool that exists.
Yeah.
And you may be offended by what I say, that sort of has the smell of the 18th century on it about this or that, the other thing, but I'm still just telling you, there's something. There's something there that we can pursue. Yeah. And so I think it's worthwhile. And some people, I gotta say, some people, as you say, who encounter this teaching, just like that's where they go. Their soul is just led right, like this is it. This really changed my life to have this perspective on what's going on in a relationship. It does kind of get under your skin in a good way.
We've had comments on this channel where people say that's the book that got me hooked on it. Yeah. But also, you could read this entire book. As I said, you're not in a marriage relationship.
Yeah.
You can read this as spiritual growth. We had this awesome. Remember, there was a gentleman named Christian Swenson who did a little audience story for us, and he was talking about how a number in this book really helped him with something he'd been grappling with, having had Asperger's, and so. It's something you can get all kinds of material out of. And if you're interested in Swedenborg's view of the whole world, this is a piece you got to have, because it's not an isolated thing. It connects to everything. It does
connect to everything. That's right.
All right, let's see what's been on your mind. What can we possibly confuse for you more? This is what you guys have been sending into us. As always, we very much appreciate the comments and the questions, and just
our expertise,
that you would care about the Swedenborg stuff. In the first place, it's just more than we could hope for. So let's see what you got for us today. Goodwill asks, how can we overcome self-ego and pride? And I would say this ties in today because we talked before about what's the main enemy of marriage love, but another place he defines the hellish marriage, which is the opposite of the heavenly marriage. And that is, as it filters down into two people, is control. So if one partner is controlling the other partner and not, dominating, not letting that partner thrive and be their own person, then that completely kills the potential for any marriage love between them. So the same question of how do you overcome self-ego in the regular world applies then to relationships and everywhere in between. So what do we do to get over this thing that blocks us from all the heavenly happiness that comes when it's gone?
I would say, first of all, I think it's a very important question.
Yeah.
And we probably don't have time to do it total justice, but I think the first thing is there's nothing that Swedenborg says that we couldn't complicate further with a good answer. But I think the first thing that comes to mind is to sort of load some truth into our heads. You know what I mean? Because the heart may be all involved in its self-centered world, that dark part of our heart.
Yeah.
But the mind can sort of get a little daylight. Yeah. And so you load in some truth, you start to think from a different perspective, and then just doing from those principles, from whatever sort of source you get them, but that kind of truth, especially spiritual truth, can help you start to just observe yourself. It's great to do some repentance on pride. It's not fun, but you look at the ways in which you're arrogant or domineering or whatever.
Are you talking to me?
Not you personally, just individually, but the but the to me it's kind of a lifelong practice where you just realize, the thing I'm about to say is going to sound or something. You know what I mean? Like you bite your tongue, and it's basic kind of repentance practice. And an important point to add is that it's not that you're going to extinguish that. It's an important part that tells you, hey, someone's running roughshod over you right now, or something. You're like, your reputation is on the line, or it gives you important information. It's just if it's running the show, then you turn into sort of a narcissist or a obnoxious person or something. But it's useful, so there's a place for it. Yeah. It's just getting it into the right place.
That's great. I forgot about that, even though it's one of the main points. But what we could say is, you don't have to get rid of it. You don't have to get rid of it. it just needs to be less important than two things to you. Love of God, which in Swedenborg's parlance means love of what is good. And then love of what is true and fair, and then love of yourself. So it's all right to have boundaries and think you're okay and cool and do things that you want to do, take care of yourself.
Sure.
But what the problem is when I would rather this whole place burns to the ground around me as long as I come out looking good. I will take your means from you because I want them. That is the problem. Or
that's where you get into bad areas.
Yes,
yeah, that's right.
So it's there. Okay, and in line with that, what I was going to say is negotiate with your self-ego a little bit, because I find that if I'm just trying to jump off this cliff of before spirituality, I was living in this world where it is ego, it is me against other people, it is trying to get what I want most for myself, and just to say, well, I'm just not going to care at all about anything that happens to me. That's very tough, because it's very hard to say, why should I be unconcerned with my future welfare? But if I look at what is actually being taught about what it's like to live from love and all that, it's actually better for my own happiness as well. That you see in that quote about a marriage love.
That you benefit.
You benefit.
Yeah.
And to say.
By someone else's joy, you're getting fed by that too.
Because if you just say to your lower self, listen, it's not good to try to be better than other people. In the end, the right thing to do, because you'll be making them feel bad, the right thing to do is give up something and let them have it. That there's going to be a part of that which is just, but what about my own happiness? But to say to yourself, did you know that if you do rearrange your mind spiritually, you are going to now no longer be subject to the fears that have bothered you your whole life. You're no longer going to be a slave to this routine that drags you up and down and makes you miserable. You are going to be much happier doing this. Sometimes that's the motivation. It's not always, but at times negotiating with yourself and realizing this is going to end up even better for you to give this up.
It's an excellent point. There's been times in my life where I've sort of treated myself like dirt, and I'm thinking, well, this is good. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And no, that's not it either. Yeah. Really, when it's working ideally, everybody benefits.
Right.
The Lord really cares about the lower self.
Yeah.
Like that be happy too. And it's not happy for it to be dominant and running your life, because actually your relationships break down and chaos happens everywhere. But,
and you think you're on top, but really what that running your life is hell running your life. It's this stuff.
You're a slave to
coming in and saying, you have to do this, you have to keep on this. It's not really you running your life. It just seems like it is, but it's not a happy life. So, great question. All right,
love it.
Let's get to the next one. Thank you so much. Matt Klein asks, does Swedenborg ever discuss a way to evaluate how we are doing on our spiritual journey in receiving divine love and wisdom? A divine grade card.
Yes, right.
So like a midterm.
He does occasionally, I can't remember the exact passage number or something like that, but he does have something where he says, if you remember this riff, it's something like, if two people are vying for a job and you actually realize the other person would be better in the position, they're better qualified than you are, then your heart's in a good place. It's not just sort of like, I've got to win the battle of life or something. Right. Or if something happens to somebody, somebody gets hurt and you feel compassion about that. There are certain sort of signs. He says it can be very difficult to tell. Because people who are in really good shape often feel that they're not. And people who are not in good shape think they're wonderful and they're just acing life or something. And so we can get really turned around in our opinion. But he does give some kind of benchmarks. And another one relates to what you think about where your mind goes when you're alone. Like it's not you're putting on a show for everybody or something like that. It's just like you're by yourself. It's the middle of the night. You wake up and like, where does your thinking go? What are you thinking about? What kind of thoughts are you having?
It's very easy for us to be good-natured right now and like positive and upbeat because we're on camera. Like we know everybody's watching us. But as soon as this turns off and I'm like, Stuart, what are you doing, Jonathan? That is not that that's everything, but it's a good test
It's a good test, yeah. And it's just, don't despair if you're not getting a good signal that way. It's just there's still time on the clock. We can keep trying to turn things around and pray for help and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there is this weird dichotomy where, on the one hand, it's very tangible. You can know how you're doing. There's very clear steps Swedenborg gives. But on the other hand, a lot of stuff does lie hidden in the spirit, a lot of heavenly joy.
Didn't he say that in one of the things you read, right?
Just going to say that, that marriage love, do you even have it? You may not know. You may not even know yourself if you have it. So unfortunately, you could be doing very well and not know it. Sometimes actually states of mental and emotional upheaval are signs you're doing well, because there are temptations or spiritual crises.
Even having a particularly negative view of yourself, because you're up here and you can see your lower self, and you think, wow, I'm really awful. Look at all this awful stuff in myself. That's actually good. Yeah, so it's very tricky, but there are certain sort of benchmarks, so report card. I like that idea. Just like, how are you doing with it? Love and wisdom.
So Matt, you're welcome for nothing. I hope we gave you something in there that's useful.
Just confused everything.
Okay, let's do one more.
Well done.
One more quickie.
Go team.
Immortal Blue asks, what separates the hells from each other? What prevents the devils in the most evil hell from crossing into the less evil hell and attacking all the Satans? Yeah. Hey, that's somebody who knows their Swedenborg stuff, because devils and Satans is devils being the emotional corruption, Satans being the intellectual corruption. And if you're out there in hell, how is their order? Does God really care about, because just because you may love some kind of evil that's not that bad, does that mean you forfeit all your protection? And is that fair? And so what goes on there?
It's very interesting. That's something related that Swedenborg says is that the Lord takes great care to prevent the lowest hell from attacking like the middle heaven instead of the highest. Like he tries to get them the equilibrium, get the right people battling each other. It would be like you don't have like a Super Bowl team playing a college team or something. It's mismatched. So college teams play college teams, NFL teams play NFL teams, that kind of thing. And so part of it is the way that love and wisdom, or their opposite, sort everything out in the spiritual world. So there's kind of membranes around people who love certain things, and so but some of it is a kind of divine protection. I think that he really does protect he protects the lower heavens from encroachment from hell. A lot of what he was doing in what was called the Last Judgment was protecting the weak good people. Right. So there's tremendous divine care. That doesn't exactly tell you how, but the Lord cares a lot about. And the way I see that in nature is that, like, you have tigers, you have wolverines, ferocious predators, amazing, powerful, enormous creatures, warthogs and what have you. And then you have little butterflies and little tiny thing, and you would think, well, don't the tigers just like get rid of all the butterflies? But no, the butterflies still exist. They have their role, and they continue, and all these different kind of things are allowed to continue in the ecosystem, in the balance.
And the forces that keep that happening, which are the tiger, if it wasted all its energy going after butterflies, it wouldn't be able to sustain itself. Those are all very complicated, and I think what would do this here, prevent the devils in the most evil hell from attacking the less evil hell and Satan's there, the answer is something very complicated but very meticulous. That everybody in hell is essentially, even though they don't feel like it at all, they feel like they're free and out doing things, they're essentially on tether. And that angels are very closely involved, God is very closely involved in making sure that they're not allowed to cause any suffering that won't lead to some kind of good. So the only time you'd be able to attack, and we're just working on a show about this right now to come out later this year, any attack you're allowed to do, the only time you can actually succeed in something like that is if the person you're attacking will actually end up being helped by it, because it'll keep them away from some other kind of evil. So there's no just, no one was paying attention.
There's no free-for-all, no.
Yeah, so that's
very highly regulated environment, actually. Yeah, just as nature, the order in the cosmos and everything. Yeah.
Right. So there's a couple of answers. Thank you so much for those great questions. And why don't we just end up here today by doing a little embarrassing of ourselves? It's time for our elevator pitch segment.
Oh, good.
So this is a game where, again, we're taking these from ones you guys have given us previously, but we haven't seen these, we promised you. What we do is try to explain in a minute what...
Whose idea was it?
It was mine. Swedenborgian. I thought we how do we give the people, something to worth their time going through this thing. Okay, what we're going to do is we pretend we both just stepped on an elevator, and we have 1 minute to explain a concept that pops up, not only what it is, but why it matters. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first, I guess.
Okay, so Dr. Jonathan Rose has just stepped into an elevator with me, and I'm going to ask him a question. We're total strangers. I'm going to ask him about... Elevator pitch! The very first pitch just happens to be the following. The wrath of God. Hey, will you tell me about what's the wrath of God according to Swedenborg? So here's the countdown, and you have 60 seconds.
Scripture, the Bible, talks about the wrath of God, and there's many stories about this, and it can be very terrifying to people to read about that because it sounds like God is so angry and everything. And yet when you think about it, if that were really just literally the case, wouldn't an almighty God be able to do worse than, couldn't he just crush people out of existence or something? I'm going to do something really angry. I'm going to make you think about yourself a little bit. The wrath of God doesn't really have as much impact as you think it would, because actually the fact is, Swedenborg says he's loving. It would be impossible for him to even frown at us. That picture of the wrath of God is something necessary for the lower self. It's good to terrify the lower self a little bit. But the higher self eventually realizes, there's nothing but love and mercy there.
All right. So what you're saying to me is that this is just an appearance, that if there was actually the wrath of God, it wouldn't be, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cause the crops to fail this year. It would just be, you're all gone, which is absolutely true. Right. So there's something else there. Yeah,
the fact that the world is full of beauty and people doing nice things and there's lots of mayhem and madness going on, absolutely. But is this really the worst that God could do? If you had all power and you set your mind to it, is this really the worst you could do? It's my foot sometimes hurts in the morning.
The actual experience of the wrath of God, according to Swedenborg, is that that's from a false perspective, where when you live in evil, when you live opposite to God, you bring all kinds of ego-type problems and misery into your life, and you think God is doing this to me.
You blame God for it.
Yeah, that's right. The wrath of God.
Good.
Okay, great. Well, I'm glad we hit this elevator together. Good. The roles are going to be reversed now. I'm going to have something, and I'll have a minute to explain to Dr. Jonathan Rose what it is and why it matters in his life. So let's see what mine is. Are we saved by grace or works?
Oh boy, you got the big one.
Here we go.
All right.
Saved from what? What is it that you're trying to get out of? Have you ever felt what it feels like to love and to selflessly love? What are we trying to get out of? Isn't it the maelstrom and the matrix of competitiveness and of hatred and of everything that drags us down? What is being saved from that? Isn't that when you live from love and the freedom that comes from knowing that you're on the same team as me? So is that grace or works? Well, if grace is like God's unconditional love and pulling us out of things, of course we're not doing that on our own. Of course God is doing it. But if you never participated, if you never said, you know what, I have this, it feels like I'm alone and do I make this choice to help someone or not? Am I putting up effort to get off the couch and do this? If you never did it, would you ever really be able to live in that love? So God is providing the means, but unless we get out there and get the experience, is that even something? Would you even want to be saved without having to put something in? Doesn't it mean that much more when you've put your own feelings and blood, sweat, and tears on the line? Okay, all right. Nice. Good. So I think that's what grace or works means. So anyway, good, everybody. Thank you so much for those. Great riding up this elevator with you, Dr. Jonathan Rose.
That was fun. I learned a lot.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming on this journey. We love talking about this sort of stuff. We do it all the time because we have not just this show, but we have News from Heaven.
Really?
Which is our show on Thursday and Saturday, where you'll just see me
twice a week
going nuts. Yeah, with a pen, going through these. We dipped into some of the books here, but that's where I really go through line by line and what does this mean for us.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
And like and subscribe. if you don't mind, I know we said in the beginning, it does really matter to us. Hey, would you talk a little bit about Patreon and how this whole thing happens?
Well, I'm lit up about Patreon, and I'm a patron myself.
Yeah.
Patreon is a way that you can give just a small amount, and you determine the amount, and you can split anytime you want to, but you just monthly, there's a certain amount that goes into supporting the show.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a regular contribution. It helps us because we know that money's coming in. And what we do, with all the good stuff we give away for free, but to our patrons who are often passionate, supporters of what we do, we'll give little fun things, behind the scenes videos, little extra content here and there, or outtakes, or what have you.
Sort of Q&A, personalized Q&A, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
We're a nonprofit. Everything's free. We try to make the books free, with this free. If you've got a little bit of extra means, consider supporting us in what we do here, so that not just for you, but this kind of conversation can reach everyone.
And it means more than you can imagine for us to know that we've got that support, and that there's a reason why we do these crazy shows.
That you want the ideas to spread. So, thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and in trying to get those ideas to spread more. We'll be back at this next week. We'll be doing Swedenborg's book, True Christianity.
Ooh.
His last book that he published.
That's right.
And with a combative title like that, it's going to be good. Thanks, Jonathan Rose. It was really fun hanging out with you.
Really delightful, Curtis.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Swedenborg Life Live is Curtis Childs, host and showrunner, with co-host Jonathan Rose. Live stream tech and graphics by Stuart Farmer and Matthew Childs. Show writing and chat moderation by Karin Childs and Chelsea Odner.